Hey up everybody, and welcome back to the Audi Cycling YouTube channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at the Volta Catalunya, the third round of the Stage Race Championship, and also the next opportunity for you to go and pick up your Stage Race Championship Wallchart. I will leave a link to these in the description down below. It's a great way of tracking your scores and the teams which you've selected throughout the Stage Race Championship, and also 10% of the profits go straight back into VELOGAMES. So it's a great way of supporting this channel and also VELOGAMES. So if you want to go pick yours up, then go and check the link in the description of this video. But let's take a look at the Volta Catalunya. Obviously, firstly, let's go take a look at the stages. We have the kind of fairly traditional first stage, which finishes with that kind of uphill kick. It's the one which Nick Schultz won ahead of Pogacar and Stevie Williams last year. It's the one which Matthews has won in the past. It's the one where, very sadly, Colbrelli had that heart problem a few years ago. So that sort of finish. So it's certainly one for some hardy sprinters, kind of GC riders, punchers. It's a bit of everything. So certainly one to think about for maybe putting on some hardy sprinters there, because especially when looking on stage 2, this is going to be more of a sprint. It's a slight kick up to the finish. Yes, there is a category 1 in here, but I think this will more than likely be a sprint. There might be some crosswinds, but it's probably going to be a sprint. So therefore, the person who takes stage 1, if they were to be a sprinter, will probably also do quite well on stage 2. Stage 3, we finish up La Molina. This is a 218.6 kilometer stage. It's really long, and it includes nearly 4,800 meters of elevation gain. It's a super tough stage. It's got an HC category climb in there, and that's even before La Molina. So this is going to be an absolute GC day, one for the pure climbers for sure. Stage 4, we have another summit finish, 8.8 kilometers at 6.6%, so that should be another one for the GC riders. Stage 5 to Amposta, 172 kilometers. This will be one for the sprinters, but again, chances of crosswind, so always make sure to check the forecasts as well. Stage 6, again, another GC day with a 5.9 kilometers, 7.5% climb to finish the day, but plenty of climbing throughout the day with just shy of 4,000 meters of gain throughout the whole day. And then stage 7 is the very traditional Barcelona circuit race, which is a really cool stage to watch. You know, Thomas de Gendt won this in the past. We saw, I think, did Pogacar win it last year? Pogacar was definitely up there last year, but we've seen a mixture of people winning this stage in the past. So it's one for GC riders, but punchers and everything. So kind of like people who will be competing in stage 1 might also be competing in the first stage. Anyway, let's go take a look at VELOGAMES. Ayuso is the most expensive at 26 credits, which makes sense given that he's just won Tirreno Adriatico very recently. He's also the home rider because he is from Barcelona. So therefore, Ayuso very much merits his 26 credit price tag. And I think that given there are, I would say, I mean, maybe stage 1 he gets involved in, but let's say realistically stages 3, stage 4 and stage 6, so and maybe also stage 7, that's definitely 3 or 4 opportunities for him to be finishing inside, you know, well, probably to be competing for the win, and those daily GC points, the end of tour points as well. He should be, you know, if things go well, he could very well be getting up towards like 900 points, at which point he'd be very much worthwhile. So Ayuso is a good choice. Roglic, I can never tell what to think of Roglic nowadays. He wasn't that great for me in Volta Algarve. He seems to just be a rider who focuses more and more on the Grand Tours, but that doesn't mean that he won't just turn it on for this race, because he's been very good in this race in the past. He's won it in the past against Evenepoel. So therefore Roglic is certainly one to consider. But he always has this inherent risk of sometimes not performing very well in this early season phase, if you can even still call it an early season phase right now. So Roglic I've just got some question marks over, but that could actually be an opportunity for you to capitalise on people's uncertainty and put him on, and then he does really well. Obviously, you've got a really big differential. The 18 credit riders, you have Landa and Yates. Landa, who was doing very well in Tirreno Adriatico. Do you remember the stage which Ayuso won? The stage 6, I want to say it was. Landa was third behind Pidcock on that day, so therefore Landa's obviously in very good form, and given that there's no time trial, Landa is a good choice. 18 credits though, a little bit on the pricey side for sure. He's definitely going to need to be competing for the podium places at that sort of price for him to be worth it. If he ends up finishing something like 6th place, he's probably not going to be that worth it. Yates was 4th in Milano-Torino, despite apparently before that race not feeling too well or not being that great in Tirreno. I think 4th place in Milano-Torino, given that he was working for Del Toro, was a very good result. So I think that Yates has also won this race in the past and is therefore another good candidate, and maybe doubling up with him and Ayuso could be quite a good decision, because I do think that Yates has a very good chance of finishing on the podium of this race. Then you get into the kind of second tier. I mean, I'd probably include Landa in here, but like the second tier favourites of, Landa, O'Connor, pretty much just all these 14 credit riders. And I think it's very hard to differentiate which ones are better than the others. I'd say O'Connor, given that he's 2 credits more than the others. He wasn't that great in my eyes in Paris-Nice. I think he was 15th in GC. Maybe he's turned it around and that was just him really getting kind of back into the kind of racing. But that didn't give me too many good signs, and I would probably favour going with one of the other 14 credit riders who have shown a little bit more recently. Somebody like Van Eytveld, I think would be a really good choice, especially since Van Eytveld seems to get involved in the kind of punchy sprints. Remember, stage 1 of the UE Tour where he was inside the top 5? Van Eytveld could definitely be competing for that stage 1, so I think that he has maybe another stage over some of these other ones. And then you got Mas. Mas is alright. He was, I think, top 5 in this race last year. Martinez had a very good Paris-Nice because he won a stage but then really dropped off towards the end. Not quite sure why, but if he was to be a bit more consistent in this race, then he'd be worth it. Gal seems to always suffer from just poor descending ability, pretty much. But given that a lot of the climbs in this race are quite long and hard rather than punchy, I think that Gal might have a better chance this time round, and he definitely finished Paris-Nice on a high, so I think that Gal's certainly good. Carapaz probably not so much. He's one of the ones I've got the least confidence in, just because he was 15th or something like that in Milano-Torino. And then Bernal, coming back from injury, is apparently fine, all things considered, after that crash in Classica Hayen. But again, I'd have more confidence in picking a rider who I've seen racing recently rather than Bernal coming back from injury. But again, that provides a good opportunity for you to put him in as a differential. And also Simon Yates I probably won't be picking. Again, another rider would be like Roglic, who doesn't really go too well, or just seems to take a bit to warm up into the season. The 12 credit riders, you got kind of sprinters and some other domestiques basically. I'd say Groves, great pick, just finished 5th at Milano San Remo, and he's won multiple stages of this race in the past. And I think that he could be, competing in those stage 1 and the 2 other sprints, so maybe he could get towards 400 points, which would be really good for Groves. But it is very reliant on him winning those stages. Anything less than winning won't be that great. If he were to finish 3rd place in all of those, it'd be alright, but maybe more worthwhile thinking about getting GC riders instead. But Groves in theory is a very safe choice, so I think he's good. Laurence was very good in this race last year, but he did also cost 6 credits in this race last year, so I haven't seen that. Laurence had a good start to the year, but has just kind of faded off a little bit, so for me, probably not that safe. Corbin Strong, Vandenberg, Bittner as well, dipping into the 10 credit riders. Other good sprinters as well. I'd say Bittner maybe doesn't have that great of a chance for the first stage, whereas Corbin Strong and Vandenberg and Groves do, which obviously warrants his slightly cheaper price. But I would say that it's more worthwhile trying to get those 2 extra credits and getting Groves, Corbin Strong or Vandenberg on your team, but more realistically, Groves is the best. Kelderman and Kuss, I don't really know what to expect from them. I think they will just be domestiques, especially Kelderman. Kuss is a little bit more unknown. Sometimes goes well in this race, sometimes doesn't. So, I don't know. I'm not quite willing to pick somebody based on a 50-50. Like I said, for 10 credit riders, Bittner's pretty good for the 2 sprints that he might compete in. Fortunato could finish top 10 in GC. Teo, we haven't seen that much of. I mean, he was in Volta Algarve, where he was top 10 on the Alto de Foyer stage, which has certainly given me encouraging signs to pick him. But at the same time, like, he hasn't been outstanding like he has been in some previous years, so I don't know. He won't be that highly selected, and I think that again gives a good opportunity for a differential pick. And I do think that he could be top 10 if he has a good string of results. Godon was very good in this race last year, but I think he was a bit cheaper last year as well. But in theory, Godon, they do also have Van der Laan here, so a little bit unknown as to who they'd be picking, but I'd say that Godon has a good chance of competing in those sprints, so I like him. Pellizzari, VPP, very good domestiques, I think, and if their leader were to not do well for whatever reason, they'd be very good choices. Riccatello, maybe he'd be quite good just because the climbs are very much suited to his sort of rider profile, which is just a pure climber. So I think that Riccatello is also not a bad choice. Maybe not as great as, say, Fortunato, just based on recent results, but still worthwhile thinking about. And then you have G, probably not. Soler has finished. I think I saw he finished 3 times inside the top 5 of this race, so maybe Soler could be a really good choice. Again, another one who doesn't, sometimes doesn't do that great in stage races, but you forget about his good performances you do with Soler. So maybe he could be, again, worthwhile thinking about. Maybe him plus Yates and Ayuso could be a good little trio to put in your team. Vernon will be good for the flat sprints. However, to be more worthwhile, he'd need to be competing in that first stage, of which I think that Corbin Strong would do. So a little bit unknown who Israel Premier Tech will be sprinting for. The 8 credit riders, Aniokowski is one sprinter to think about. You've got Einhorn, another sprinter for Israel Premier Tech to consider. You've got Govakar as well. And maybe Quinn Simmons might sprint for them. So that's your kind of sprinters from this part. Oh, Hater as well. However, I don't want to risk it. We all know what happens when you pick Ethan Hater. And the other guys, I mean, Berthe, possibly. He could just be a domestique for Felix Gal. Buchmann, De Plus, possibly, as well. Antonio Fagundes, after such a fantastic Gran Camino, where he was inside the top 10 in GC. Maybe he could finish, maybe not top 10, but maybe like top 15, top 20. Bart Lemon, Wout Poels, Howard Martin. You got a lot of kind of like C-tier GC riders here, like Steinhauser and Staunomitic guys who kind of burnt me a little bit in Paris-Nice. So maybe I'm less likely to pick them. Honestly, I'd say that 8 credit riders for me aren't that convincing. I'm not jumping to try and put one of these guys in my team. I'd probably say your safest option is to pick a sprinter like Aniokowski or Govakar. And the other guys are just a little bit too risky for me. For 6 credit riders, there are some pretty decent ones. Bill Barter was, I want to say he was like 14th or something in GC in Paris-Nice. So I think that he could be up there. And Movistar usually do quite good in Team GC as well, so worthwhile considering. Matthew Brennan is one that you should definitely be putting on your team because he is super fast. He's recently won, I can't remember which race it was. It was some French one-day race. Actually, he's won like 3 French races recently, so he's sprinting super well at the moment. And at 6 credits, it's a bit of a no-brainer, guys. So you really should be putting up Matthew Brennan onto your team. Chavez has done very well in this race in the past, so he's worthwhile mentioning, just in case he could do the same thing again. Chamil won a stage of the Gran Camino. He's the Guatemalan national champion. Maybe that's your kind of thing. Ivan Kobo, he was also up there in the Gran Camino, and he has done good in stage races like the Tour of Oman in the past. This is a different kettle of fish, obviously, with some different styles of climb, so maybe not, but we'll point him out nonetheless. Nils Akoff has been in fantastic form recently. However, because they have Bittner in this race, I don't think he will be that flush with opportunities to go for his own results. So maybe not Akoff, but because he's got such good form, you never quite know. Anders Voldaga, he should be getting involved in the sprints for sure. Stage 1 is very suited to his characteristics. Not an out-and-out sprinter, more of a puncher, but he could certainly crack a few top 10s in sprints. There's Kemner, actually. We haven't seen him since his crash in training, which was pretty horrific. But he's a guy who does pretty consistent in terms of GC performances. So Kemner at 6 credits, pretty good value for money. It's just you don't know how he's going to be going off of his crash. So certainly take a little bit of caution with that one. Paul Mikel, good sprinter, kind of puncher guy, so I think he should be going for the sprints. Mullerbran, very good for stage 1, I think, and maybe he could get involved in the sprints. So I'd say him. There is Ida Schelling as well, who's 4 credits, but I think that Mullerbran, in my opinion, would be a little bit safer for them to be going with. Bjarek Roland, I really like too. French kind of talent coming up and coming. He hasn't had the greatest results this year, but one of these times he's going to break through, and maybe this could be the time where that happens, and you could certainly have him on your team. I don't think that Groupama have a big leader in this race, and therefore he might get a bit more protection going through it. You have Badzeng. Wasn't he like 4th or 5th on the Green Mountain in the in the Tour of Oman? Sorry. So therefore, I think that he's certainly worthwhile thinking about, because I think he could be a top 15 for GC. And generally, these 6 credit riders, you're either going for sprinters or just like GC riders. I don't think any sort of breakaway is going to be really working that well. Pablo Torres, I think he will just be a domestique, but he was very good in the Tour de l'Avenir last year. He was decent in the Tour Down Under, and he will get a load of assist points. So worst case scenario, you get a load of assist points for him. And the 4 credit riders, Jona Gear, possibly. I forgot. I touted him up so much for Gran Camino, but he absolutely flopped. So apologies for that. Daniel Barbour is a sprinter, and 4 credits probably worthwhile putting on, because he'll probably get a couple of top 10s. And at 4 credits, that's actually quite good value for money. I'd say also Dries de Putte is a sprinter for Intermarché. Okay, he hasn't had the greatest results, but you never know with these sprinter types. Sometimes they're protecting somebody else. Sometimes they're a lead-out man. Maybe this time round he gets his own opportunities. And other than them, there is Ida Schelling, like I mentioned earlier, you could go with. So those are all kind of sprinter types. Darren Van Beckham was 2nd in a Tour de l'Avenir stage behind Pablo Torres last year. He was dropped by like 40 seconds or something. But if he's given his own leadership, maybe he could do something in this race. However, with Fortunato in this team, I doubt if that will happen. So my recommendation would be to go with Barbour, de Putte, or Ida Schelling. Those would be the 3 which I would say you should be picking. If you need more than 3 4-credit riders, I'm not kind of sure what team you're selecting. This is my team at the moment. Ayuso, Yates, Van Eytveld, Gal, a little bit unknown, Badzeng, Bjarek Roland, Matthew Brennan, Paul Mikel, and Dries de Putte. I'll probably go with Barbour instead, actually. I think it's a very GC orientated team for sure. I'm not sure about Gal. He could really be any of these 14 credit riders. I've also dabbled with the idea of maybe not going with Ayuso, picking Landa, and then putting those 8 credits onto a 6 credit rider, so I could get another 14 credit rider, say Bernal or Lenny Martinez. That way I've got 5 riders who should in theory be finishing inside the top 10 in GC. So I've also dabbled with that idea. However, Ayuso is just the overwhelming favourite, and therefore I feel a little bit nervous about not picking him. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with my team at the moment. I think there's ample opportunity to get 6 and 4 credit riders in there, so you can definitely play around quite a bit, and there's going to be some interesting iterations of teams out there. Speaking of which, that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know in the comments section what teams you're thinking of selecting, and if there's any riders who I missed out who you think are worthwhile mentioning. And all that is left to say is to stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next video. Salut!